welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to In Search of the Crystal Skull, our new series where we look at mediocre films. How I can make that exciting is right up to you. My name is Aaron.
My name is Patricia.
Okay, and so Patricia, are you ready to go for a really exciting adventure with me?
Yes, let's, gotta go fast.
Gotta go fast, yeah, but before we go fast, I think we should explain to everybody the purpose of this podcast. So, basically, the reason why we call it A Search of the Crystal Skull is because it's kind of based on the movie Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Now, there are some people out there who say that it's the weakest of the Indiana Jones franchise. However, it does actually have its own set of fans, and for me, I feel like when I first watched it, I felt like there was some good elements to it, but also some pretty bad elements to it as well. But I kind of felt like neither of these ever cancelled each other out, so I decided that there must be other films out there that also make me feel the same way that I feel about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So this podcast is dedicated to that, so that is the reason why it is called In Search of the Crystal Skull. So, I hope that makes sense to everybody. So, basically what we're going to do is, we're going to look at these mediocre films. So, really what we're looking for is kind of like between 60 to 70% on RottenTomatoes.com. So, we're going to use that as kind of like the basis of that. But, if anyone else has any other suggestions for films that people kind of like dislike, but also like at the same time, then we're also open up to other suggestions as well. So...
Yes, and also for those who are asking about like, oh, maybe you can give more details on the movies that you talked about previously that have had mediocre reviews, such as the Cars movies or half of the DreamWorks movies. Well, we'll think about it because we've already talked in depth with it, so...
Yeah, we may revisit a couple of them, but mainly we're going to try and talk about new material that we never discussed before. So,
right.
Yeah, we're basically going to go that direction. Anyway, so Patricia, like you asked before, are you ready to go fast?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, here we go. So, Sonic the Hedgehog is a 2020 action-adventure comedy film based on the video game franchise published by Sega. The film is directed by Jeff Fowler in his feature directorial debut, and it was written by Casey and Josh Miller. It stars Ben Schwartz as the voice of Sonic the Hedgehog and Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik, as well as James Marsden, Tina Stumper, Natasha Rothwell, Adam Pally, Neil McDonough, and in the film, the Sonic teams up with the local town sheriff, Tom Wachowski, to find his lost rings and escape the evil clutches of Dr. Robotnik. So, going into this film, and really, I think the main thing that we need to kind of really talk about is kind of like the initial discussion that this movie was going to exist, because there have been fan imaginations of what this film would be. There was even that one that starred, unfortunately, Doug Walker in it as well, and so there was that thing that kind of came to be to give an idea of what a Sonic movie kind of will be. Also, people have also done their own versions of 3D animated versions using Source Filmmaker and things like that of what a Sonic film movie might actually look like, but it's always been left in the kind of like the fandom, really, and it's never really gone any further to that. Well, walk in Paramount Pictures, and they gave the green light for this movie to finally exist. And oh boy, did it have a very rough reception.
Yes, let's just get the elephant out of the room, saying that the first trailer that Paramount first released on Sonic the Hedgehog was not a very good one. It was so mismanaged with Gangster's Paradise from Coolio and the look of Sonic himself. It was just so critically bashed by people, so much so that they had to go back to the drawing board, literally, and they had to reanimate Sonic. They did some new music, and then they brought out the final project that we have now. I mean, they had to, you know, use so much money to fix the face and the persona of Sonic that the company that worked on it shut down shortly afterwards.
Yeah, well, mind you, they say that there's been some talk about that the shutting down of the studio wasn't purely based on the fact that Sonic the Hedgehog had to be remade. There's been some arguments about that somewhere. I can't remember exactly where I saw them, but I mean, going back to the fact that Gangster's Paradise was the chosen theme for the in the first trailer, you know, keep in mind this was a song already used for another film in 1995 known as Dangerous Minds. And so, and also on top of that as well, the lyrics, unfortunately, kind of describe the Sonic franchise to where it is now. So, do you want me to read these out again, just to kind of remind, basically, where Sonic the Hedgehog was at that time? I'm sure I've done it once before, and I'm going to do it again. So, As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life and realize there's not much left. Cause I've been blasting and laughing so long that even my mama thinks my mind is gone. Even the first 4 lines of that makes you think that this is where Sonic is right now. You know, just where, as a franchise, pretty much. So as you probably imagine, also, just getting away from that, the look of our character. You know, it was just absolutely horrendous to the point where, yeah, it was totally and utterly redesigned. But I just wanted to, can we really even describe in a good couple of minutes how angry people were looking at that?
Yeah, they were very angry. I actually did a podcast a few years ago discussing about the first Sonic the Hedgehog trailer with my good buddy Tom that you can go check out on my YouTube channel. And yeah, we tore the trailer to shreds, essentially.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure we talked about it on the Arrow Meta show too. And so that never escaped our view as well. But, I mean, the initial impression that we were given is that this movie was going to be bad.
Yep.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, like Tim Miller was the writer behind this, the same guy who wrote the first Deadpool movie. He left Deadpool 2 because of disagreements with Ryan Reynolds, and this is the movie that he ended up working on. So we know that he was very funny. So the fact that he was working on the Sonic the Hedgehog movie thought that, hey, maybe there could be promise, but that trailer did not help.
No, it did not. But eventually, they came to their senses, they redesigned the character, and they basically reintroduced us to Sonic. And I guess in like the final couple of trailers that they released, they gave us a good impression of what Sonic should actually be. And so, I mean, keep in mind, like, he's a teenager who is kind of trapped between worlds, and that he's trying to escape, being caught. And so, obviously, he's living this life of just kind of like just being, if anything, like a teenager, but obviously being like this character who thinks he's part of the community, but in actual fact, he's actually invisible. And so, like, no one knows he's actually there. Anything like that. If anything, probably the little animals probably know more about him being there than anyone else. So, yeah. But, I mean, so we go into the movie, and so I guess where do you want to start with? I mean, do you want to start with, like, the characters, or do you want to start with just the story?
Okay, so I guess we have to kind of start a little bit with both. So the movie kind of begins with, a young Sonic, which this is one of the first things that we saw in the Japanese trailer, the baby Sonic. And for a while, there was like this, debate about like who's cuter, baby Sonic or baby Yoda, or the child as he's officially called, because it's not Yoda, people. Just please stop. So, we essentially have young Sonic running around Green Hill Zone, and he's confronted by his teacher slash parental guardian, who's this owl, and talking about like, Sonic has this special gift, and, she's been protecting him, and how, his gift of going really, really fast, everybody's going to go after him. And so she decides to give him these rings and tells him to go over to another world that he cannot be chased after and to lay low for a while. And so essentially, that's what Sonic does over the past 10 years. Now, in the canon, Sonic is around 15 years old, so we can assume that this is him as a 5-year-old, and, he is like 15 when we first see him in like the present time. And, we see a whole bunch of really nice references to, classic Sonic. There's the Sonic logo, there's the Saturn logo, the hilltop, when he's like in his little den, and, he's talking about like he's been in a whole bunch of worlds and he's starting to run out of places to go to, and the only place there is like this mushroom place, which is kind of akin to like the Mushroom Hill Zone from Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles. So essentially, he's been eyeing the Wachowskis from afar, and, he kind of like sees them as like his only family, even though that they don't even know that he exists. So
there's one thing. There's one thing that bothered me though out of everything. There's one reference I didn't particularly think was it was completely out of place, and you know what that was?
What's that?
Sonic floss dancing.
Okay, now here's the thing. I think that, in my opinion, Sonic would do something like that because, he's always into like the hip, cool, trendy things, and he's always like incredibly overconfident. And yeah, I'm getting burned out by the floss dancing as well. Damn you, Fortnite.
I guess, but yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it's a Fortnite's an Epic Games, it's an Epic Games, property, not a Sonic the Hedgehog property. It's kind of if you're forgetting the dating, like, the fact that it's referencing another video game company, it just seems out of place.
It is. I mean, if anything, they should have had at least one of the taunts from Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah, you would have thought so. Like, yeah, so, well, some of the references that were thrown in there, like, the fact that it nodded to Green Hill Zone, as, like, this is where he ends up in Green Hills, and, then also, yeah, and then they stuck in, obviously we've got the crazy old man who says that, oh, yeah, I've seen, like, this blue creature, and, basically they make a reference to, Sonic, that image.
Oh, that's right, that meme image, yeah.
Terrible meme image, and, somehow they managed to scheme that into there. And, but mind you, like, the Sega logo was going to end up on there anyway, pretty much, but, I mean, it's, and also, they says there that they actually did the legendary Sega call, which, I didn't really hear it. Was I just not paying attention when, it first came up, or, because,
I don't know, to be quite honest, because, yeah, so basically, you have, Sonic, and he feels really lonely at times because, nobody knows that he exists, and he needs to keep his cool because he's very overconfident. And, we do get to see a few moments in which he is, like, really, really lonely. And, we actually do get that baseball scene in which when, he's playing baseball by himself, and then he, starts becoming, like, really upset about him being alone, and then he causes a huge power surge.
Mm-hmm. So he creates that power surge, and then the military are brought in, and they think that the best idea to deal with this is to bring in a mad scientist for whatever reason. So in comes Dr. Robotnik to I have to say, a very fun-loving Jim Carrey, who seems to be loving this entire thing. And I gotta be honest, it's nice to know now that Jim Carrey has found a villain role, which kind of like will probably scrub over the Riddler role that he played during I think it was Batman and Robin, wasn't it? Like,
Batman Forever.
Batman Forever, okay then. So, it's nice to know now that, Jim Carrey has played a popular villain, and will probably be remembered far more for that than he ever will be for any other ones that he's done. I mean, like, the only other villain role I think that he did really well, I think, was Scrooge. I think that was about it, really. So,
yeah, I mean, and to be fair, he also was in a TV show, if you remember, where he plays as a kid show host, and he is surrounded by people who are very miserable. His son, his ex-wife, his sister, and he's like the only happy one who's like surrounded by people who are just downright depressed. That's like the only thing.
Was that recently that he did that?
Yeah, that was like last year.
Oh, was it? I think Ariana Grande, appeared in that, didn't she? Or,
yes, she did.
Oh yeah, good grief.
Yeah. So that was the most recent thing he was doing, because I think he was saying that he was quitting acting because he was wanting to focus on painting or something.
Yeah, he did.
So I think that
yeah. So he's been
and I think that
quite
he was
a while.
mentioning that exactly. And then I think that he mentioned in various interviews that the only reason why he picked up this role was because his grandchildren were huge fans of Sonic the Hedgehog, and they wanted him to be Robotnik. It sounds very similar to Raul Julia, the guy who played as M. Bison from the Street Fighter movie, where he wanted to be as M. Bison because his sons were huge Street Fighter fans, and this was kind of like a gift for them right before he passed away to cancer. So it's kind of like something similar to that. And Jim Carrey does a great job. He was like probably my favorite character in the movie.
Yeah, I say Jim Carrey got me through this movie. So I think the fact that I was just kind of looking forward to seeing what he would be able to do next. I think there was some times where I felt like he went a bit over. Like there was that like whole music dance thing where like he was dancing whilst trying to figure out how to enhance the one of his Sonic the Hedgehog's like one of his quills that he had, and there was that bit which I think went way over the top, I think, a little bit, and it was kind of like, I was kind of squirming in my seat a little bit then when I was watching that, but he even during that he even managed to kind of rescue it with like with saying, oh, do you not want coffee? It's like, no, it's my favorite, like it just
yes, it's like I love the way you make that latte.
So there was that, and so even in some of like the awkward moments, even Jim Carrey could even can go through that, and so yeah, it was brilliant to watch, and so also to I think some of the weaker moments, I think, in the film was, I mean, they tried to like play up like, oh hey, Sonic might potentially die in this movie, something like that, which we know is not going to happen because obviously we've seen like the end of the film where like you can see what's happened. And
yeah, but they've done this like so many times in the video games. They did it for Sonic 06. They did it for Sonic and the Secret Rings. There's going to be at least one cutscene where we think, "Oh no, Sonic is going to die."
Well, even
so,
then, like
yeah.
even putting those references aside, like just in the movie, like in the very beginning of the movie, they show you him being chased by Dr. Robotnik, and that's basically where they left it. And then, but then halfway there, it's like, oh hey, I almost died at this point. And then it's like, oh, hey, I'm back, But that's not going to happen because, in the flashback, he's going to be right back up again fighting Dr. Robotnik. And then he goes back to that scene at the very beginning of the movie. So, like...
Yeah, and they must have teased, like, Sonic dying, like, 3 or 4 times. And I was like, okay, guys. I mean, the first time was fine, but now you're starting to overkill it.
Mm-hmm. So... And also, like, there was another bit as well, which I found a bit underwhelming, is that, at the very end of the fight scene that we were going to get, and so we got this, it looked like a throwback to, like, the classic boss battles of Sonic the Hedgehog games from the Sega, Genesis of old. And so they did that whole thing, but I mean, I was hoping that they were gonna like turn him gold at some point, and like maybe they're leaving that for like a future movie, maybe. But,
yeah, I really was hoping to see Supersonic.
Yeah, and it never happened. And I thought maybe they just leave, maybe they're teasing it, maybe they're just leaving it for like a future movie where they're gonna describe how well basically he goes to that next point because I guess at this point he's not got the Chaos Emeralds. So, like,
yeah, that's true. There was no Chaos Emeralds in this movie. And to be fair, the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie didn't have Supersonic, only the sequel. So I guess they were kind of like playing in the classic approach. It's like, okay, this is kind of like an origin story. We're introducing Sonic into this universe and, we're going to, start him off fresh and we're going to, go back to basics. So I can understand why they decided to not do the more familiar things. Like they did introduce his like companions. There was no Chaos Emeralds and, there was no Supersonic, which, okay, fair enough.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so, yeah, I mean, just, like, going through the story, I mean, in a way, it's kind of a bit basic. I mean, like, you've got this, I mean, in a way, it's kind of like, I don't want to compare it to E.T., but it's kind of like, hey, alien comes from out of nowhere, the population starts to notice that some weirdness is going on, bad guy comes in, wants to capture the alien because it's got some kind of power, and then, hijinks ensue. Like it's a pretty generic story, and it's a pretty safe story to go with. And
but I think that was like the best thing that they could have done. If they would have like pushed it too much, like it was like so weird because they've done it in the past. Like, oh, Sonic is becoming stale, and we need to do something completely different to freshen up the franchise. But people want to go to the basic Sonics. I mean, why do you think people were so negative about Sonic and the Secret Rings and Sonic Unleashed and all that stuff? And people really prefer, Sonic Generations and Sonic Mania.
Do you know what I kind of worry about is that, like, maybe in future, if they do make future movies of Sonic the Hedgehog, they're probably going to go that route. Like, they're going to start introducing, like, anyway, we'll get to like the spoiler at the very end of the show, but in regards to like just wrapping up what we've got already is that I just think the story's pretty generic, but at the end of the day, like we got Jim Carrey to get us through it, and there's some elements of the story that we're supposed to kind of like play up to the drama, but we knew that he was going to make it through in the end. So, like, in regards to, like, there being anything, like, massively spectacular here, there isn't anything really. It's just kind of like, it's a standard story, pretty much, with some bells and whistles attached to it, and the fact that it's just Sonic the Hedgehog. So...
Yeah. And, besides Sonic the Hedgehog, there's also the story about Tom Wachowski and... Wachowski or something like that.
Yeah, and like then with this whole thing with his girlfriend and that they're gonna have a baby soon, and or they're something's gonna.
No, they're not having a baby soon.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No. That's another movie. But no, what the whole point of the story is that he is a cop who is in Green Hills, and he's like this local cop that pretty much just does nothing. He's just a regular traffic cop who, helps the neighborhood when they need it. And so he's been brought into San Francisco so that he can be able to like push his capabilities of who he is. And, his girlfriend is a veterinarian, and, she becomes helpful in the movie when Sonic goes through another, fainting spell. But for the most part, Tom thinks that, he is not taken seriously. And so, he wants to move to San Francisco so that he can be able to push his capabilities as a cop. And, everybody's saying like, no, no, don't leave, Tom. We really appreciate you here in Green Hills. And he's like, no, I want to, get out of the town. And then it just so happens that, he finds Sonic in his garage, and when he was trying to chase away the raccoons from the garbage can,
Okay.
and
Well,
then Dr. Robotnik just so happens to be.
Okay, well, Patricia, I have to say, I think you've paid far more attention to that part of the movie than I ever did, because the fact that I started off with pregnancy was not where I was going. But I just wasn't switched on by that. Like when they first introduced that into the movie, it was kind of like, oh my god, are we doing Masters of the Universe all over again? We're kind of like doing like, we're worried more about the side characters, kind of like worries than we are about the fact that we came here to see a movie about He-Man. I kind of felt I got that vibe from it when we started going down that route, and I felt that was kind of like a negative going towards the movie, but that was just me. But
well, I mean, like I actually like the relationship between Tom and Sonic, because I mean, since we weren't gonna have the classic, companions like Tails or Knuckles or anybody else, it's like, okay, if we're gonna have this, then at least James Marsden's Tom was going to be, a pretty, fun character to be around with. He is he's the one who's like calming Sonic down while Sonic is like looking at everything for the first time. And he's just like so filled with awe and wonder. He goes into the bar and he causes a huge ruckus, and, they have that huge trip over to San Francisco, which, is obviously a Sonic Adventure 2 reference, where, you have that famous scene where, it takes place kind of like in San Francisco, where Sonic is running around in the first stage. And yeah, but for the most part, he needs to get to San Francisco because while he was trying to get over to escaping from Dr. Robotnik, he accidentally dropped his rings over to a building that he saw in Tom's t-shirt. And then they need to make the trip all the way over there so that he can be able to escape from Dr. Robotnik. And Dr. Robotnik is chasing after them, and he is so relentless. Like, you have that scene in which when they're chasing them in the road, and you have the tank, and then you have the car, and then you have the little plane, then you have the little drone robot. It's like insane.
It's kind of a reference to the old Sonic games at the end of the day. Like, you have Dr. Robotnik starting up in one form, and then all of a sudden he kind of like, builds down to like, a smaller form. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so like it's a good reference to that. So yeah, but I mean, again, it's another testament to Jim Carrey just getting us through that movie. Like, I'm really glad his performance kind of stood up, because like, if we were subjected to a very mediocre Dr. Robotnik performance, we would have been tired going like 20 minutes into this film. I guarantee you.
Yeah. And it's like, where's Mike Pollock when you need him?
Exactly. So. But yeah, I mean that was a great element to it as well, and so I mean I can't really think of any other kind of positives and negatives. I think of Sonic the Hedgehog. I mean, like I guess one negative is that I mean, besides like all the retro like themes that we heard during the Sonic movie, I mean I can't really think of any other themes that were kind of going on at the time, and
you mean like music?
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, I mean it's true. Yeah, I mean I can't really remember too much of the music other than the beautiful piano orchestral theme of Green Hill Zone. That's the only one I remember. But yeah,
exactly.
I don't remember too much of the music either, which really sucks, by the way. They really need a Crush 40 to come by and do the soundtrack, because Crush 40 has done some of the best songs in the Sonic franchise, and the fact that they were not there is a shame.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm just wondering. They probably might have turned around and said, "Well, I don't think anyone." I mean, obviously the Sonic fans would have heard of them, but I think they were thinking more of the general public. I think after that. So I mean, it sounds unfair.
Sure.
But, yeah. But yeah, I was looking at some of the some of the tunes that were in here were from Kelly Finnegan, My Poppy Family featuring Terry Jacks, ex-ambassadors I've heard of. But yeah.
Okay, now to be fair, the songs that they did shoot, they had to do with speed and running fast, and they had at least one phrase of Sonic. I mean, that is actually really clever. I do admit that, but I mean, it just kind of like blends into the movie, so nothing really much to say about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I guess I'm just wondering if we want to start doing scores for this movie, and
Yeah, sure.
maybe we'll probably see which one will get. I tell you what, one thing we might do for this series. I tell you what, actually, I won't spoil it now. I think we'll probably leave it till later on. But so what? So good scores out of 10, shall we? And so, what score do you think Sonic the Hedgehog is deserving of?
That's really tough because this movie was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. But at the same time, there's some parts that are really memorable, and then there's some parts that are really forgettable. So, maybe 7.5 out of 10.
I think I'll agree with that. I think I'll go with 7. So I think, yeah. So 7.5 and 7 out of 10. So that's a kind of round up score, about 7.25 out of 10.
Yeah, I think that there are some good things about it, like Dr. Robotnik, and I did like Sonic. I did enjoy some of the scenes, but then there's some things that are pretty forgettable, like the music is forgettable, some of the scenes are forgettable, and yeah, I mean, there's some times in which the humor is a bit hit and miss, but yeah, I think it kind of just evens itself out. So yeah, I think that the movie is definitely one of the better video game movies out there. I mean, like, I can't really, I mean, I think you can only like count with like like only maybe like one hand of like, really good video game movies out there. Like, maybe some of the Pokemon movies. Some people say some of the Resident Evil movies are not that bad, or Prince of Persia, or, or Silent Hill or something like that. So, yeah, I think that I think it's definitely up there for like one of the better video game movies, and I'm actually curious about how Super Mario Brothers the movie is going to shape up.
No, I'm sure we're going to find out pretty soon. So, I mean, going into the box office figures, so the box office currently stands for the Sonic the Hedgehog movie at $306.5 million.
Wow.
And it's on a $95 million budget.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm actually curious, is that the highest grossing video game movie? Because Detective Pikachu, that also made a lot of money as well.
Well, I'm just having a look. I think Detective, well, while I'm doing that, let me have a look at Detective Pikachu's box office figures, because I'm not too sure. Oh, Detective Pikachu did $431 million at the box office. So it's
okay.
It's not beaten Detective Pikachu yet. I mean, like, there's still plenty of weeks to go until it finally closes production. Sorry, closes screenings. But so still plenty of time for it to catch up. But it hasn't caught up yet. So we'll see.
We'll just yeah, we'll see for sure.
Okay, so we're going to leave this to the very end of the show because we didn't want to give away any spoilers. So if you want to stop listening right now and go watch the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, then we suggest that you go and do so. But I mean, like at the very end of the movie, we were treated to Tails appearing at the very end. So saying that, yeah. So that gives an indication that I think they're going for a sequel. That's just my hunch.
Yeah, for sure. And also, we also see at the end credits that, Dr. Robotnik was at the Mushroom Hill Zone, and that, he starts looking like the classic Robotnik that we know of, the bald head, the bushy mustache, and, his attire. And he's starting to like put the pieces together on his ship, and he still happens to have one of Sonic's quills, which he was able to generate a ton of power and speed with it. So I think that there is like talks for a sequel if the movie continues to do well.
So yeah, we'll find out soon enough what we're going to go find out with next. And the also other thing to note as well is that this at the very beginning of the movie, I'm surprised we actually didn't talk about this, is that Sega marked this as a Sega quote unquote original movie. Which kind of makes me think, do you think they might be hinting at the idea that this might not be the only Sega franchise to potentially get a movie, and that we might be looking at potentially a Sega cinematic universe?
That's really interesting because, when it comes to like Sega properties, I mean, what other Sega, video game series besides Sonic that, would be good for movies? Let's see. I mean, the most popular ones that Sega has been doing are the Yakuza series and maybe Shenmue. And I mean, like, if they want to dip back into their classic, properties, maybe we could see a Streets of Rage movie.
You know
or
what? I
a
was thinking that, actually. Yeah.
Golden Axe movie.
Yeah, there's already a GoldenEye movie, Patricia.
A Golden Axe. Golden Axe.
Yeah, I know what you meant. But, yeah, I mean, like, they could even do a Revenge of Shinobi movie, maybe. That'd be kind of cool to watch.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Okay, and so...
maybe they could even do Comic Zone. We could see Phantasy Star Online or something.
Maybe. So, I mean, does Phantasy Star Online have a story? I thought it was just like a fantasy game. I would have thought.
I mean, I know the Phantasy Star games, like the RPGs.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about Phantasy Star Online for some strange reason. Yeah, I know what you mean now. Okay, so, yeah, I mean, like, if they go that route, that'd be kind of cool. But, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Mind you, I don't think Columns of the movie would be very entertaining to watch, I don't think.
Or Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine.
But, I bet you they'll make a reference to that in one of the other movies, I think. But,
yeah, like they did a reference to it in Sonic Mania.
Oh, yeah, they did. So...
but yeah, I think that probably a Yakuza movie wouldn't be too surprising because, I mean, it's essentially like one of those like gangster movies akin to The Godfather, except instead of focusing on the mafia, it's the Yakuza, which is essentially the Japanese mafia. So I mean, that's like one of their biggest franchises out there next to Sonic that Sega has been working on a lot of, and Shenmue 3 is also gotten a bit of popularity, but it's not released on a Sega console, even though it was originally a Sega Dreamcast game. So there's that. And, I can't think of any at the moment that, in recent years that Sega has been known for. So, yeah, I think that I wouldn't be surprised if there is like a Sega division that they want to go into movies. Maybe they'll do a better success than Square Enix when they try to do the Final Fantasy movie, if you remember.
Yeah, I remember that too. So, but anyway, let's hope they're not too mediocre to end up on this podcast series. So,
I don't think so. I think that we're not gonna do Final Fantasy the movie, The Spirits Within. No, because I think that movie was torn by critics. So, yeah. I don't think we're gonna be talking about that anytime soon.
I don't think so
or at all.
Yeah. But anyway, that concludes our first ever episode of In Search of the Crystal Skull. So we will be diving once again into another movie, and we'll be letting you know what that movie is going to be very soon. So thank you very much for joining us. My name has been Aaron.
My name has been Patricia.
Take care, and bye-bye for now.